I would like to introduce Ann Ogden Gaffney. Ann came to the culinary world in a roundabout way. She spent many years in the fashion industry before she turned into a chef, and a couple of bouts of cancer really got her being a healthy cooking advocate. She's the award-winning author of James Beard nominated cookbook, Cook for Your Life. I showed you the picture on my slides earlier. And she's the founder of Cook for Your Life and a published academic researcher in the Dame Escoffier. So we're really thrilled to have Ann here. Her own experience with cancer, and I'm sure she will share that with you, led her to create both the cookbook and the Cook for Your Life website. And they're always putting out new recipes, and I really like them. They're really very good stuff. And the website really is designed to help cancer patients and caregivers learn how to cook and eat delicious, real food to promote healthy eating in survivorship and to nourish and comfort during treatment. The recipes from her cookbook and website are on the menu for lunch, and was dinner yesterday and lunch yesterday. And she collaborates with researchers at Columbia University and the Fred Hutch Cancer Center in Seattle. And Ann has designed several food behavior studies funded by major companies like Aetna Insurance and the National Institutes of Health. And her long career and her background being Italian has really flavored her food and her recipes. And online, we're really delighted to bring, where's Morgan? Is Morgan here? Oh, can you get Kate to come in on the Zoom? Oh, well, we will be bringing in oncology trained registered dietitian Kate Ueland, who is at the Fred Hutch Cancer Center, and she works with Ann on Cook for Your Life programs. So we'll let her do a quick introduction when we get her on. Hopefully there's no problems with the internet for her to get on. But I'm going to turn it over to Ann because we have a lot to talk about before lunch is served.
We sure do. Yeah, we have to really get cooking. Now, because we can't actually cook the things in front of you, and some of the things I've chosen. Oh, can you hear me? Yeah. Like the soup is something that we could have made in real time during this demo. So I'm into things that are quick, easy, and healthy. Now, you might think that getting into a squash is not quick or easy, so I'm going to show you how to do that. And but first of all, I'd just like to tell you a little tiny bit about how I got into this, because oh, I just got a brain hole here. That's Stephanie. Yeah, she was saying I got into this. I never meant to do this. It's one of those things which became part of my cancer journey, if you will, because when I was going through my second cancer, I've had 3, and the last one was bladder cancer, which brings me to you guys. I was in a support group. I went through chemo, radiation, everything. And I realized that a lot of the people in my support group were not having a very good time with their food. And I like to cook. And I realized that when my taste buds changed, I could tweak and fiddle around, and things were easier for me. But for those guys who ordered out the same meal every night from the restaurant, and it just started to taste horrible, they just didn't know what to do. So I thought, aha, cooking. People need to have a bit more, not be so afraid of food and just enjoy it. So this is my whole thing. I'm kind of like a bridge between nutrition and your kitchen, if you will. And that's how I like to see what we do and what we do at Cook for Your Life. And I must say, the book is great, and the website is also great, which is really worth a visit. Ah, there's Kate. Yoo-hoo. Hi, Kate. Okay, so do you want to say anything, Kate, before we get going?
Good morning. Sorry, I was on mute. Hi, and nice to see you. Looks
nice to
lovely
see you
up there. Yeah. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, it's great to have you. So I'm just going to start cooking, just showing how to get into the squash, and just to talk a little bit about the squashes and everything. So you all know butternut, I guess. this is all cut up, unfortunately. Chef did not have one. But one of the reasons I like butternut is because, as you can see here, you've got the seed part, and then you've got the neck, which is very easy to cut and cut up. So it's not such a big problem. But my favorite squash of the lot is this one. It's used in Japanese and in Hispanic cooking. And it's called cabocha or calabaza. And what I like about it is that the skin, you can actually eat it. It's got a lot of dark green and it's very good for you. And it's got a mealy kind of starchy quality to it. So if you're making soup, it's not watery. It's more like a russet potato, if you like. So you kind of get a creaminess. And the soup we're going to make today is going to be, or you're going to have today for your lunch, is like a creamy soup with no dairy in it whatsoever. But it really, you would never know. Okay, so first of all, sharp knife. I'm going to go in here. Ugh. It's a good thing to do if you're in a bad mood. Okay. I'm going to make a big noise now. Hang on. It's going to get cooked. So now the first thing to do is to pull the seeds out. Now, do not throw these away. Yes, you can put them on your compost pile and end up with like a huge jungle of squash next year. But you can also dry them out and put them in your oven with a bit of sea salt. You can just spread them on a tray, put a bit of sea salt and just break them till all the fibers go dry. And you can eat them like pepitas that you buy in the store, pumpkin seeds. So you've got a twofer here. All right, so seeds are out. I was going to start a garbage pile here. Compost pile, sorry. So you kind of need to cut this little hard bit off because this is no good to anybody. Now with this kind of squash, you can literally, I'm going to move this so you can see. You can literally just pull off like little polka dots. This is the more Japanesey side of it. Okay. Kind of all you need to do, because the actual skin, I mean, Kate, there's quite a lot of nutrition in the skin of these dark green skins, right?
There sure is. Yeah, we see a lot of fiber for one, right, is tied up in that skin.
Yeah,
and
fiber.
Then there's lots of nutrients like in that space between the skin and the flesh where the plants will house their vitamins and minerals. In particular, with the squashes is a lot of vitamin A, a lot of vitamin C, which is really lovely to have kind of moving into the fall and winter season.
Yeah, one of the things I love about squashes and about nature in general is that, in the summer you get all the fruits and the berries that are full of vitamin C. Well, in the winter we get squashes, and they can kind of take over these squashes and cabbages.
Yeah.
Cabbage family. Now, as you've probably seen, I've cut it into slices. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is this. Now,
it's really
yeah, go on.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say it's really lovely to see you keep the skins on it. That's a rare thing to see when people are cooking with squashes, except for things like the little squashes, butternut squash, you can keep the skins on, but that's nice to see.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I like cabocha, because you can eat the whole thing. Butternut squash at this time of year, when they're just coming off the vine, they're all very tender. And in fact, when you cut them open, it's fabulous because it'll bead with moisture because they're so fresh. And the skin at that point is edible, but later on in the year, once you get in storage, the skin can be a bit tough. So that's one of the reasons why they always get peeled. So let me just cut this up a little bit more. Then we're going to put in a potato. Now, I've got an onion here somewhere buried. Yeah. Would you all like to see how to cut an onion? Yeah. Okay. I don't always do it because when I'm actually cooking something, I always figure that people don't need to do that. And the round ones, you just cut the edges off, corners, and then down the middle. There you go.
And don't forget the beautiful orange color gives us that lycopene and the carotenoids that are cancer protective as well. It's also really important to be eating these varied colors of fruits and vegetables.
Yeah, we should all be eating the rainbow, right, Kate?
Every day, Anne.
Every day, yeah.
Well, I guess I should say 4 to 6 days of the week. That's the target. You're doing a great job if you can get into that kind of cadence of 4 to 6 days of the week, eating the rainbow.
Yeah, and some of the things like the pasta salad we had last night, you can start to add greens to pasta so that you end up with like more greens and pasta, if you like. My husband used to complain bitterly about that, but now he loves it. I cook, he doesn't. So. But that's being a mean person. Anyway, I'm just dicing up the potato. Now these are they're gold potatoes, and you want kind of a mealy potato like this from Yukon Gold, or I sometimes make them with russets and Idahos, you know, the baking potatoes, because again they're very starchy and kind of mealy, and they give a really great texture to the soup. Okay. And notice I'm keeping the skins on for a couple of reasons, which Kate can tell us about why it's a good idea to keep the skins on your potatoes.
Yeah, just for very similar reasons to the squash. Again, that's that space between that kind of lining between the skin and the flesh of the potatoes is really where a lot of the nutrition is kind of concentrated, meaning the vitamins and minerals. And then the skin also helps to give us that fiber piece, which is, you know, providing what I call it, like substrate or food, I guess is another better way to describe it, for the healthy bacteria that live in our GI system. In turn helps to keep our immune system really healthy and robust.
Okay, so I'm just going to cut half of this up for you so you can see what now the good thing, you know, with it's good to take as little off the onion as you can, but you've got, if there's anything that looks like it's about to go dry, you need to take it off. Okay. Cut it in half. Now, it's always a good idea to bare claw. So I'm going to cut it. That way you can cut quite quickly. I'm not going to do it quickly today, but okay. And there you go. So you've got your diced onion. It doesn't take more than, you know, just a little bit of patience. You don't need to go. Slower is better, as my fingers have told me frequently. So that's that. So we have the onion. We have the potatoes. We have the squash. Now I'm going to put in magic ingredient. You'll know this guy. This is fennel, or sometimes known as anise. And this is I love it. It's got a fantastic flavor to it. It's got a light sort of aniseedy taste, and it's really good for the digestion, I find. It's one of those things that if you're having a little bit of trouble, you know, digesting food, fennel helps calm your insides. Why would that be, Kate? What is it about fennel that does that?
Well, the anise in the fennel provides those that compound just to help just exactly what you said, calm and digest. It's those phytonutrients in there that are working on kind of calming that digestive system after you eat, especially if you're nauseous. Fennel tea is really nice because it can calm your stomach. Yeah.
And if you can't find a fennel bulb like this, you can actually use fennel seed, which doesn't go off like a fennel bulb because it's whole spice. You can keep it for up to a year in your cupboard. Okay, ground spices you really have to look at everything, but the whole one's not so much. And then if you put the fennel in when you're heating the oil, fennel seeds, it will just give a fennel taste to the oil, and that's almost the same taste as if you have a bulb. Now you saw what I did. I just cut the bottom of the bulb off and I cut the fronds. Now these actually I never throw away at home. Put them in a bag and use them like a herb. They're fantastic with fish, if you like fish, just to put inside the belly of it or to it up. It's really, this is something do not throw away. Okay. Even though we're going to do that today, unfortunately, but or you can chop it up and then just use it as a garnish as well. Okay, so with the fennel, cut it down the middle. And you can see, that's what's shown in the inside, that it's kind of, you've got these little layers and there's a little hard part there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put the flat bit on the ground. Whenever you're cutting anything, it's always better to put the flat cut side down, more stable, like that. And then like that. And then I'm just going to cut it up a bit like the onion, because this, you've all heard about the holy trinity of flavoring, right? The carrot, celery, onion, that's used a lot in Italian cooking. But you can substitute the celery for fennel anytime. All right.
I just asked Kate a question. So Kate, if you were going to make fennel tea, this is Stephanie, and
Hi,
if you were
Stephanie.
going to make fennel tea, would you just chop up the fronds and put them into some boiling water and then strain them out? Would that be sufficient to do that? I'm going to pass some around. Because if you've never smelled fennel, it's a wonderful, wonderful aroma. And if we're going to throw this away anyway, take one and pass it around and just rub it in your fingers and smell it. It's lovely.
So that's the flavor. That's the flavor it's going to put in your soup. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All
Yeah.
right.
So Stephanie,
I would all around.
I would say the fronds or the really tiny pieces, and then also the seeds are also really concentrated in those phytonutrients that are going to help kind of calm the digestion and relax your muscles, and that kind of helps to relieve some of that gas that people experience. And one of the kind of classic reasons why fennel is so popular is because it does help to kind of relax your stomach muscles so you can pass some gas. And it's a fun thing to talk about.
Thank you. I'll make some fennel tea this winter because I love it.
Yeah, and it, like Kate was saying, if you've got the seeds, you can just put a teaspoon in a teapot. Right. So now there's one thing about cutting squash. You may feel like too tired or too much. So just buy it from the store pre-cut. There's nothing wrong with that. The only thing I would suggest that if you do buy it from the store, you use it the day or the day after you buy it. Don't leave it in your fridge for 3 days because it'll get moldy and you'll say, oh, that's, but because it's been cut for a while. Okay, so these are the ingredients for the soup.
Butternut squash. But it's already chopped, so it makes it really easy. So there's no excuse like, it's too much work. It's really already done.
Yeah. And the thing is too, with a soup like this, once you've sauteed the onions and put everything in,
switch this mic
you just
on?
put a bit of stock on top and bring it to a simmer. And when the vegetables are soft, it's ready.
We have a quick question in.
I'm sorry. I'm 4 years out. I do a lot of cooking.
Yeah.
From scratch. On the fennel, that's new to me. That's interesting. I saw a green stripe. Can you comment? More green, less green is good? Because sometimes the stuff at the edge, the husk is you really don't want. So any thoughts on that? Thank you.
Well, the thing is, what you always have to do with when you're buying your vegetables is to try and get them looking as fresh as possible. And with fennel, if it's got any bruises on the outside, you should really ditch that part and just work with what's fresh and green on the inside. And so that's one of the things. And the greener the better. Yeah, and I like it with the big tops myself. But though you can't always buy it in the supermarket like that because it takes up too much room. Okay, so now we're going to have a look at the at the vegetables. I'm not going to do this again because who needs to see that being cut up a couple of times? Now, I love roasted vegetables because, you know, especially at this time of year, you can roast any kind of root vegetable. Sweet potatoes, we're familiar with, right? But you can also roast carrots, parsnips, turnips. And things like turnips, which a lot of people don't really like very much. They think, ooh, turnip. Oh, when you roast them, they become the sweetest, most delicious thing. Yeah. And turnips also are bursting with kind of nutrients, right, Kate? I mean, they're really kind of a power veg.
Yeah. They're well packed with lots of different nutrients. And I love that you talked about like the fact that it brings out the sweetness when you roast them. And just, you know, don't be afraid to roast your vegetables.
Yeah, I mean, when in doubt, roast it. And the other things too, when you have leftover roast vegetables, you can either put them into a salad or you can actually blend them with stock and make a quick soup because they have a lot of flavor. All right, so the turnip we should really peel because the skin can be a little bit bitter. And sometimes you can get in the markets at this time of year, you can get little Japanese turnips, which are sweet enough to put in salads, but they also have green tops, which you can cook like spinach and they're really delicious. Okay. All right, I'm just going to cut a little bit of this up. And again, we're just going to dice it. Now, the thing is that when you dice your roast vegetables, you want to try and keep the dice sort of the same size. Can anyone give me a reason why that would be a good idea? Apart from it looks neat. Yes, gold stars, everyone. Because you want your things to cook all in the same time. You don't want to have like a beautifully cooked carrot and then like a huge chunk of turnip that's raw in the middle, right? So, well, some of us might, but not me. So there's that. And the carrot's the same thing. I'm not going to, yeah.
Oh, I wanted to do a little fun fact about turnips.
Please.
They're like, as you might not think of them as being part of the brassica family, like broccoli and kale and chard and things like that, that are more commonly green in color. Turnips are in fact part of the brassica family. And so they provide those really strong anti-inflammatory compounds, the indole 3-carbanols or isothiocyanates. Can't say that this morning.
Say it quickly.
Say it quickly 3 times. That have been really well studied for their anti-cancer properties. So it might be a better option as you're, getting and exploring more of the brassica family foods to start with something like turnips that do provide a little bit of sweetness when you roast them to kind of help with that really bitter taste that can be classic of the brassica family.
Yeah, and you can use kohlrabi the same way as well.
Mm-hmm.
The kohlrabi bulbs, those roast up a treat. And sometimes I saute them like potatoes as well. And they're in the cabbage family as well. And I just, the cabbage family, I can't say enough nice things about it. Now I'm just going to cut this carrot. And if you notice, I'm putting it down where it's not going to rot. And I'm just going to go straight down. Give myself a couple of. Okay, so we got some carrots. Yeah. Oh, yes. Oh. No, when I was a kid, I was the only one in my family. My mother and I were the only people in our family who would eat it. So yeah, I love it. Give me a rutabaga any day of the week. And they're great roasted also. And also, Kate, I mean, they're pretty like turnips, right? In terms of their their nutrition value, right?
Yeah, really high in fiber. And that's one thing I think that gets missed with root vegetables is just that, they tend to be kind of on the off list and because they're, full of starch and things like that, but they're also really full of fiber. And so if you're looking to increase the amount of fiber that's in your diet, consuming, root vegetables in their whole form is really a great way to increase your fiber.
Yeah, and the other thing too is things like turnips, rutabaga, kohlrabi. They're a great way to have roasted vegetables, which are actually quite low carb, as opposed to potatoes or yams or sweet potatoes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm just parsnipping away here. Yeah, parsnip. I'm British, and I love parsnips. Okay, this is always a Sunday lunch treat, roasted parsnip. And roasted till they're almost within an inch of their lives, very caramelized and all of that good stuff. But yeah, parsnips are great, and they make great soups as well. On the Cook for Your Life website is a great curried parsnip and apple soup.
That's a question of the oncological dietitian. One question I had about cooking and cancer, and you mentioned this a few moments ago, was the anti-cancer properties in certain foods. And I guess something that I struggled with, which I never struggled with prior to my diagnosis, was what to eat after my diagnosis and feeling that like food was potentially the cause of cancer or it was potentially a solution to cancer. And so when I hear anti-cancer properties, I feel like that's it's not clear to me what is known in science in terms of what can food actually do for you, the role of the microbiome and bacteria. And I feel like there's so much of a focus on diet with respect to having diarrhea or constipation and the side effects of chemotherapy, but it's not focused on healing and on cancer. And maybe my assumption is that we're farther along than we are when it comes to nutrition science, but I was hoping that you could maybe answer some of those questions.
Go, Kate.
Yeah, there's several questions in that question. I'll do my best. If I get off track, I just reel me back in. So one of the first things that you had mentioned, so I just kind of want to make sure that we're going to stay on the same page and, talking about cancer, like nutrition and its role in survivorship versus managing symptoms during treatment. Is that right? I can't see you, so you could.
I have a related question. When I first told my friends I had bladder cancer, I was inundated with advice, and I'm wondering whether any of it has been scientifically proven or disproven. Example, sugar causes tumors to grow. Dairy causes tumors to grow. Fasting reduces the size of tumors. Is there any science on any of this?
What was the second thing you said? Berries?
Dairy causes tumors to grow.
Oh, dairy, like cow's dairy?
Yes.
Okay.
Milk, ice cream, cheese.
Right, but like mammalian dairy. I didn't hear dairy. I was like, I didn't hear that dairy part. Just wanted to make sure. Yeah. So, okay. So let me start with the gentleman's question and, talking about it from that survivorship perspective where, you're through treatment and you're kind of on this other side. And then, your team is like, okay, you're good. And, what do you eat now? Because if you're having diarrhea, if you're nauseous, like we're going to give you very different recommendations than we would if you're in survivorship and your symptoms have resolved and you're kind of feeling better and you're getting your energy back and those types of things. And so, I know you mentioned also the microbiome, and I can touch on that as well. I don't know, like how much time do we have? We have a few minutes. So with, kind of big picture overall, the relationship between cancer and diet is really when we talk about inflammation. We know that inflammation, chronic low-grade inflammation, is a hallmark of cancer progression. And that's really, you talk about, you asked about, where is the science when it comes to food and its relationship to a diagnosis or in survivorship. And really it's that intersection. And we know that having, what we would consider an anti-inflammatory diet or keeping inflammation as low as possible in the body over several decades of our adult life, like really helps to decrease the risk of cancer progression. And so the role of diet in that is trying to, what we do know is a plant-focused diet. That doesn't mean vegetarian, it doesn't mean vegan, but something that is really high in plants, such as what Anne's cooking today. This is a plant-focused meal, and it's really colorful. It's full of all the, an array of color. It's high in fiber. So that's really like the piece that I really like to focus on with my patients is how do we add more fiber into your diet? But like, instead of thinking about it as like, what do we have to give up or what do we have to reduce? It's more like taking it from the point of view of like, how do I add foods into my diet? What can I add to increase the fiber that's in this soup that I'm making today? How can I just add? Because that intersects then with the microbiome. And we know that 60% of our immune system is in our GI tract, right? And I have this really fun analogy. I'll try to be really quick about it. But if you think about it, right, your mouth to your anus is like a tube, right, that we put food into, and it comes in one form and it comes out another form. And if you think about it, that tube is technically the outside of our bodies. And so the way to kind of really solidify it and bring it home is like, if you swallow a marble, you hope you get to see that marble again, right? So that marble is, yeah, right? And so that's like technically outside of your body, right? Because you're going to see that marble again, hopefully, right? And otherwise, like the food that we break down and absorb goes into our bodies. And so that lining of our GI tract has to serve as like a barrier, like our skin. And so so we have to have a massive army, i.e. our immune system at the gates, kind of regulating what comes in and out. And so that's how, so the microbiome then, I know it's kind of all like interconnected, but the fiber that we eat creates these short chain fatty acids, which then in turn feed our healthy gut bacteria, which in turn help provide nutrients for our immune cells to grow and flourish. And so fiber is really important in maintaining a diverse microbiota, which helps to, in turn, keep our immune system really, really strong and able to flag damaged cells and get rid of other toxins and pathogens. Do you want me to take a pause, Anne?
No, I was just going to want to just put in there, one of the things that we try and do with the cooking, it's not giving, it's a little bit about what was being talked about this morning about healing and curing. The food is really healing.
Mm-hmm.
And what I think is important is to just to try and incorporate as much as you can. And this is what my mission is. It's to get you guys to eat more vegetables. I don't want you, and to be able to do this thing, to have a healthier biome, less processed food, more stuff that you make yourself. Because then it's going to be a healthier way, right, Kate? I mean, because the biome, they're finding all kinds of stuff about that. I mean, it's really exciting. I just want to really get on with a little bit with this, and then we can come back. We can swing back to that, because I know Kate has a lot more to say about it.
I do.
I don't want to stand here mugging, while she's doing it. So, and I've only got another 10 minutes left. So I'm just getting around to finishing the root vegetables again. So first of all, now we're coming into shallots, which are a favorite veg of mine. Well, they're an onion family. I always like to think of them as a love child of garlic and onions. And they're sort of milder, and they're the kind of aromatic that once you start to use them, you'll use them a lot. Because if you like sauteed onions, they caramelize quickly. And you can put them raw into salads. They're much milder than either of its parents. but they're really good shallots. So we're going to do some roasted shallots. And I'm also going to put in some whole garlic into with the vegetables. Now I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. So I'm going to put some whole garlic in, and I'm going to, you notice that I haven't taken the skins off because I like to roast them in the skins. That way they don't get too burnt and the inside gets all creamy and caramelized. So, and you can put this with, put whole garlic in with chicken or, any roast vegetables. It's just really delicious. So I'm going to put those in there. And then I'm going to put in some rosemary, a favorite herb. Now, rosemary is something, it's wonderful fresh. And I mean, I'm going to take this round actually. You just pull the leaves off. You don't need to chop them up or anything. And it's just, I don't know, I just love it. If you ever have a chance to grow it outside, do. But if you don't, rosemary, along with things like thyme and sage, they're woody herbs. They're really perfectly great jarred whole. They work exactly the same way. So just a thing. So what I'm going to do now is going to put these in with the vegetables. Now, with these vegetables, I'm just going to put a bit of olive oil, which is lurking somewhere. Here it is. All right, this is extra virgin olive oil, courtesy of our kitchen. Yeah. And you can just need if you're doing a huge batch, you need just a couple of tablespoons of oil. Bit of salt. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is just with my hands, and I'm meant to get some gloves, but I forgot, is just mix it round till they're coated with the herbs. Yeah. And the salt and the oil. So you can see that they're just glistening. That's all you need. You just want them to be coated in the oil. Now, this, by the way, is my favorite thing in the whole wide world. It's parchment paper. Well, not quite my favorite thing in the whole wide world. There are some other things. My husband might be one of them, but I think I use it always to line the pans, because you may have heard a lot about toxicity of non-stick, blah blah blah. And this is the absolute perfect non-stick solution. And it's also the best cleaning up solution. You can, once you've got them on the parchment paper, they can get as burnt and as crusty as they like, and you just have a clean trail, which my husband does a washer up at the house, loves. But it's just one of those things that I never used to use it. Then I started to cook all the time and I got into it. And now I can't live without it. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, bring it up here so that Morgan can see it. Now, obviously, there's not quite so many as I'd like on here. I forgot to put a couple of these guys in. Our store-bought. There's enough oil for these actually in here too. Okay. All right, so here's our selection of vegetables. And you want to put them on the tray so they're spread out. Because if you have them too many on a tray, they steam, they don't roast. They'll cook, but they won't get that sort of crustiness that you want from them. So it's like that. Now, these will just go into the oven, and I'll roast them at like 425 for about 40 minutes. Yeah. No. It depends which one you use too. Because there's one thing that you must remember about heating oil. When you heat oil in a pan, let's say, and it smokes, with olive oil, then you can get into some sort of a situation where its composition changes. I mean, you know, Kate can talk to that too, and I'll ask her too in a minute. But I found that with roasting, you can take them up to about 425 because they're on the vegetables that, you know, automatically when you have them on food, it brings the heat down from when it's just on its own. Okay. It's like if you have a hot pan and you put veg in it, brings the heat down right away. Okay. So that's how these are going to be roasting away in our mentally in our minds. We're going to be eating these later.
And they're roasting in the kitchen.
Roasting in the kitchen, yes. And then I've got these little tomatoes, and in the winter I use these all year round. Little grape tomatoes, you know, because they're the kind of tomatoes that if you can't get in the summer, when, you know, right now there's tomatoes up the kazoo everywhere. I mean, I've never seen so many gorgeous tomatoes as I have this summer, but they're all going to be gone in about 2 weeks. And then we'll be back to the you know, the ones that you get in the store, which, you know, look like sort of anemic heroines of some Victorian opera, I always think. But always a good thing for tomatoes is there are two solutions. There are cherry tomatoes or there are canned tomatoes. Now, for what we want today, we don't really want a canned tomato because we're going to be roasting them. Now, the cherry tomatoes take about half the time as the vegetables. So these, they need to be done separately. And then just once those are half browned, after about, when you've got about 15 minutes left, you just put them on the tray. And the thing is that what's fabulous about this is that and I put the shallots on at the same time because they also cook quickly. Because what the tomatoes do, I'm going to cut them in half. What the tomatoes do, they give us sort of sauciness and wetness when you mix them, when you toss them all together with the roasted vegetables. And the shallots give an extra sweetness. It's already got the garlic in there. It's already got all the sweet things in there. And this is what makes it something to eat with quinoa, to eat with a grain as opposed to just served as like a roast potato. This is a meal. It's almost like a ratatouille.
And that's part of lunch, just so you know. You'll taste it in a minute.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is that I'm sorry not to cook it in front of you today, but you're going to actually be eating it, which is better. Okay. So, in fact, these days now, if I make ratatouille, I actually do it this way. I just roast all the vegetables first, the eggplant, the zucchini and everything. And then I mix them up with the tomatoes at the end. Okay, so that's that for those. And these will be done in exactly the same way. We'll just put them with the tomatoes with a bit of olive oil and then toss them and then just put them on a sheet. Actually, I might cut that in half. Okay. No, we're almost done. I want to show you quinoa, but those are on the sheet about halfway through. These take half the time with the vegetables. So I just want to show you the quinoa. You're familiar with quinoa? Yeah, everyone? Okay, so I don't need to talk a lot about it then. This is a red one, which they're using in the kitchen. I mean, red, white, black, it doesn't really make any difference. They all taste the same. They all have the same kind of nutrition. But the good thing about it is it cooks like white rice, but it has, you know, it has the nutrition of brown rice plus, doesn't it, Kate? Because it has all protein in it. It has a complete array of protein. I lost Kate? No?
There she is.
There
She
she
just
is.
turned her camera off.
Yeah. So yeah, that's that. Now, the other thing I want to talk to you about is two little things. But with the soup that we're going to have today, you know, the creamy soup, if you want to add more protein to it, you can always add white beans, cannellini beans or small white lima beans. If you cook your own beans, even better, because you can put all of the broth in that you cook them in. But if you have canned beans, you should always drain and rinse them before you add them. And can anyone tell me why you should do that? Because that's where all the salt is. Okay, because even low sodium beans have a lot of salt in them. But they can be a great addition to soups to add protein and fiber, lots of fiber. The last thing I want to show you, well, not the very last thing. Now, this is a little Delicatess squash, which we have, these guys, which are another favorite. And these little guys, they're really fantastic. There's a recipe in the cookbook, which is for twice cooked ones of these. So all you do is kind of slip them across. This is a real squash fest, that's the thing. Put a little bit of olive oil in there, just sort of like rub it in. And a bit of salt. And I put, we can put some of the rosemary in. At home, I put sage in, and I just roast them. And when they're soft, I scoop them out. And I mix them with yogurt and a little bit of Parmesan cheese, and then pile them back into the skins and then bake them again with a few breadcrumbs on top. I got to tell you, it's, with the holidays coming up, try it. It's so good. And the yogurt I put in is, by the way, is full fat Greek yogurt, plain. I'm a big fan of yogurt, as some of you know. But plain Greek yogurt is great because you can use it as a lower fat substitute for sour cream. And and even for mayonnaise, I will sometimes put like mixed chipotle with it to make and a little bit of mustard, and you end up with something that tastes fantastic, but it's got about a third the fat. If you're counting your calories, and it's also probiotic yogurt. And the other thing too, which is I wanted to talk about, are the pumpkin seeds. I know we've been scraping them out, and I've been telling you to roast them, but if you like, seeds, you can toast these, dry roast these, use them as dressing on top. You can put a little bit on top of the soup, a little crunch instead of croutons. And you've got, a little bit more protein and everything going on there. And also, the other good thing about them is that some people who are allergic to nuts, and, Kate will have to back me up on this or not, but people who are allergic to nuts are much less allergic, who are allergic to tree nuts and peanuts, are much less likely to be allergic to pumpkin seeds. I think I'm right about that, right, Kate?
Yeah.
Completely wrong.
Yep.
Yeah. So, you can use them more safely, if you like. So, right, I think we're kind of done with the demo of the cutting. All right. There's one last thing too. Well, not one last thing. There's going to be lots of last things always with me. But you see, we've got all of this stuff, not that. All of these peelings and everything. You can actually put them, use them to make soup stock. So you can just literally keep a pot on the back of your stove and you can just put them in. And if you've got anything that's really strong tasting, like celery or celeriac, you go easy. But all of this is completely usable.
And you could freeze that too. So if if you don't have enough left over to make a nice soup stock, you can freeze it, and then when you get another batch, you can put it together, make a nice pot.
Totally right, Stephanie. Thank you. I've got a friend who does that, and his wife is always going nuts because at a certain point it takes over the freezer, and he has to make big vats of soup. But anyway, now I just want to. I don't know if how are we doing for time, by the way?
We're doing pretty well. Lunch is going to be served in 15 minutes.
Well, maybe what we can do, I was just going to blend up some stuff, but I can just talk a little bit about that. When you're blending hot liquids, because the soup we have is blended, like all of the veggies that we cut up earlier on for the soup, they're just all going to get pureed. But whenever you make a pureed soup that's hot, please, pretty please, never fill it up more than half full. Okay? And always put a cloth on top and hold the lid down. Otherwise, you will redecorate your kitchen in ways you couldn't possibly imagine.
And you might burn yourself.
And you might hurt yourself, apart from anything else. So, I mean, so just take care and go slow. Don't, be eager and put it all in, because it really, the steam builds up and it will just blow the top of the blender off. So I'm kind of, I don't think have I left anything out? I don't think I have. So Kate, I mean, maybe we should go to some questions, for cooking for me and everything else for Kate.
Yeah, do you
Talk
want
a little bit about Cook for Your Life and the resource. I shared that with you. It should be on your outline. There should be the address, cookforyourlife.org. And there is a question over here, but I do encourage you to take a look. Anne is always adding recipes to it, and it's got lovely, really tasty food. I've made a number of things so far since I, started looking at it, and in planning the menu, I wanted to try some of these things in advance. So I think you'll be really happy with it, especially if you're trying to think outside the box and come up with better ways to make something appealing to your loved one who might not really feel like eating right now. Sometimes what you see, what you smell can be enough to make you excited about eating.
It's true, yeah. And I've done a lot of classes in places like American Cancer Society and the Hope Lodges. And it's always been very gratifying when, people actually eat. Because, because the whole thing is that sometimes when you're going through cancer, it's the one time in your life when you actually need to try something different because nothing's tasting right. And that's obviously the hardest time, because it's the time you feel less like cooking and less like eating, but that's the time you need to kind of change things up a little bit. So we try and do the work for you, if you like. So, look at the website, please. And what I'm going to do on my own personal website, I shall put up the recipes that we used from the book. They won't go up until I get home. So look tomorrow, sometime tomorrow. And that's ogdengaffney.com. And you'll find the recipes from today up there.
It smells really good right here. I'm just letting you know. We have a question in the front.
Yeah.
Hi, Ian. Thank you for the reminder about oven roasting, which I love. I'm still in active cancer treatment and just feeling up to cooking again. And I have an air fryer, which I was gifted at Christmas, which I have yet to use. Do you have any, can any of these be modified for an air fryer? And
Oh,
would
yeah.
that
I
be
mean,
quicker?
you could, the vegetables, the roasted vegetables in an air fryer, totally delish. And I mean, air fryers are good for, quite a few things like that. They will. You never get crisp like it like frying. I mean, you don't kid yourself, but they do a pretty good job. And if you want to make like sweet potato fries, air fryer is great for that kind of thing too. So yeah, try these recipes in the air fryer, and you might just need less time to do it. That's all, because it's so much hotter.
Any other questions? Right over here, Karen.
This question might be for Kate. I just was wondering if you could expand a little bit more on the anti-inflammatory properties of food and how that relates to cancer.
Yeah, absolutely. So, a lot of the things that, we were kind of throwing out there with like the phytochemicals, such as, the carotenoids or the squashes and carrots and the indole 3-carbinol in the cruciferous vegetables. So, and a lot of these compounds that you hear, like the flavanols and blueberries and things like that, these kind of buzzwords that you hear out there, what those are, those are our phytonutrients, and they're compounds that plants make to protect themselves from damage, from predators, from environmental changes, so that they can stay alive. And those compounds have been really, many of them have been studied for their anti-cancer properties. And a lot of these compounds we're seeing really work on supporting our immune system. And so that's one way that plants help support, or like anti-inflammatory. Another way is by eating like the whole food with the skins on, gives you all that fiber, which, goes back to supporting your immune system. It helps, having the whole food helps to reduce the amount and the rate of sugar that you're going to absorb into your body, because fiber, again, helps to kind of sequester that And we know, and I think I can tie this into the sugar feeds cancer pretty easily. We know that, long-term high blood glucose levels leads to chronic low-grade inflammation. And then, eventually, if not treated or reversed, leads to a type 2 diabetes diagnosis. And so it's really this. And so when it comes to sugar feeding cancer, it's not that sugar itself feeds cancer, which sugar is, glucose, which feeds every cell in our bodies. It's our main predominant source of energy that our bodies prefer. Our brains prefer it over the ketones that we can also produce to make energy. But it's not and tumor cells use glucose to meet their energy demands too. And so there's, with myths, there's always some truth there. And so while, yes, tumor cells do utilize glucose to meet their energy needs and to grow and things like that, our healthy cells do too. And to date, there's just not enough evidence out there that if we pull all the sugar out of our diet enough to move into ketosis, like what you would aim for with a ketogenic diet, you're going to stop or slow the growth of tumors. What we do find is tumors are really, really, really crafty. And one of the mechanisms, and this is one of the reasons if you've met with a dietitian or any of your oncology team, they're saying, you need to make sure you're getting enough calories and you need to make sure you're getting enough protein, because one of the things that happens is that if we're not giving our bodies enough glucose, we're going to start breaking down our muscle protein to use those amino acids to make glucose. And so we could almost be doing ourselves more damage if we pull all this sugar out of our diets. Another plug for fiber is, when we eat these things that are, quote unquote, starchy, they also have the fiber. And so when you're eating the whole food, you're retaining the fiber, thus you're slowing the rate and the amount of glucose that you're going to be absorbing. And so you don't get the same glucose effects, the glucose spikes that you do in foods that are whole that you do see in highly refined foods. When you do remove the fiber from foods, you essentially concentrate the sugar. And so that's another, and we know that diabetes is a low grade chronic inflammatory state. And that the anti-inflammatory piece is really that intersection, and food is really that intersection where it's one modifiable factor that we can, to some degree have some control over, and what we put in our bodies to promote inflammation or to decrease inflammation in our bodies. And I do want to give one of those pieces, right, is I know Anne mentioned pumpkin seeds. I just want to circle back to that. Another thing is just good, healthy fats, right? And so making sure that we get enough omega-3 fatty acids in our diet. And pumpkin seeds are a really fantastic source of omega-3 fatty acids. And that's another piece of the puzzle, is that our bodies can't make omega-3 fatty acids. So we have to consume them in our diets. And even just sprinkling a few pumpkin seeds here and there throughout the week in your diet is enough to give your body enough to support anti-inflammatory fats that are being kind of downstream produced. And so does that help answer your question of how inflammation?
Yes, I can see a thumbs up.
Okay. So that's kind of the sugar feeds cancer piece. And so there's just, right now, we don't have enough evidence to promote a ketogenic diet in reducing or slowing or stopping the growth of tumors. There's ongoing studies. We're learning every day. And to date, what are we at? October 1st, 2022, there's not enough evidence. And, something else kind of tying that back to the microbiome is that when you do really limit the amount of carbohydrates that your body is consuming, complex carbohydrates like the fruits and vegetables and legumes and whole grains like quinoa that Anne was like she did the whole thing today, all the things, right, that you want to be doing. And so, yeah, it's lovely. And so, just trying to think about like, when we pull a lot of those foods out of our diet, we change our gut microbiota, which is then in turn affect how we respond to pathogens and abnormally made proteins that can eventually turn into cancer cells. So that's the ketogenic diet, and then fasting to reduce tumor growth. That's really the work that's being done there is mostly in breast cancer patients. And it's not fasting to reduce tumor growth. It's fasting to protect your cancer. It's to protect your healthy cells during treatment. And what they're looking at right now, and it's pretty interesting research, to be honest, is that if you're fasting kind of right up to where you get chemo, your body's cells kind of like put this protective coat around them, for lack of a better word, and that the chemotherapy affects those healthy cells less. So you have less side effects from your chemotherapy treatment. And it doesn't have, we're not really looking at fasting to reduce tumor growth. It's really for side effect management is where the research is with that. And then do you want me, I can do the dairy feeds cancer if we have time. That was a question
out here somewhere.
Yeah.
I have a quick question. I had seen in a documentary about mushrooms. And also my son's lived in Japan a long time. His wife's Japanese, and they use like mushrooms as a form of like chemotherapy. Can you talk more on that? I mean, I'm taking turkey tail, but I'm taking it in a capsule, and I love mushrooms, but I was just wondering if you could speak a little bit more about mushrooms.
Yeah. The evidence around mushroom again goes back to supporting our immune system. And like so many of these compounds, like especially in turkey tail that has been fairly well studied, it's working on what's called our cytochrome P450 system, which is our inflammatory response. And so it's supporting that system. So your immune system is just running more efficiently is one way to look at it. And so these things really are supporting an anti-inflammatory or reduced inflammatory state. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah, it does.
Would you give us
one more question because lunch is
ready?
ready.
The great chef. Would you list 5 foods that you seldom, if ever, would cook that we maybe should avoid? I just want to see if they're on my list of things I'm eating.
You know what? I've come around to the conclusion I eat pretty much everything. Foods I avoid mostly are fast foods, highly processed foods. You're not going to find boxed cereal in my house. You're not getting this, you'll never find a flavored oatmeal in my house. You'll find oatmeal, but you won't find those things. I really try and avoid all of those types of food. Yes, I will have a Big Mac sometimes, or a crispy, spicy crispy chicken at Burger King. That's usually when I'm on the road, and it's like twice a year. Okay. I've been in New York this past week, and I've eaten a lot of fries, but I don't make them at home. So to me, that's a treat when I go out. But yeah, it's not 5 foods. I would just avoid as much as possible highly processed, all the way down there. Red meat I eat occasionally, but I'm very careful about what red meat I eat. I will only eat, I usually my whole thing is with meat, and it's the same with chicken, fish, all the way down the line with animal proteins, is to buy the best quality you could afford and eat less of it. So instead of buying, a cheap piece of steak and eating a pound of it, I tend to eat like 4 to 6 ounces of something that's pricey, and that I know where it comes from farm down the road kind of deal. But I mean, we can't all do that. So, but it's something I don't eat it all the time. I eat it like once every couple of weeks. Like, just be moderate.
So this has been fabulous. We have a wonderful lunch, but I did want to ask Kate one more question because you're doing a lot of work there at the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Center where it's a little hard to get to Seattle. So where do people find a registered dietitian, especially if they're not affiliated with a large academic hospital that might have a dietetics program and a nutritionist that they could speak to? How do they get some advice on what they should or shouldn't be doing that would be a registered dietitian who specializes in oncology nutrition? How would they do that?
Stephanie, that's such a lovely question. And it makes me want to pull up this website right now. But the Academy for Nutrition and Dietetics, it's a funky website to navigate. And I'm happy, Stephanie, to send it to you, where you can actually search for oncology certified, board certified specialists in oncology dietitians to connect with. And I would just ask your care team, your cancer care team, if you can speak to a dietitian. And oftentimes, where I am, so many people just don't realize that we are an option. And so it's another, we have to advocate for ourselves in the healthcare community and advocate for meeting with a registered dietitian. And if you're in some community sites do have RDs that are CSO, which is the Certified Specialty in Oncology certification. And that's kind of what you want to be looking for, is that CSO label. But Stephanie, in the interest of time, I'm happy to email that to you.
You'll email it to me. Once everybody gets back, I'll put it up on the website. I'll open it up and have it so that you can all jot that down or take a picture with your phone so you have it. Because I do think, especially if you're not going to a large hospital that has a department that has a designated oncology specialist in diet and nutrition, you're going to want to, if you have questions, go to the experts. And this is how you'll find them in your communities. I think that's really important, is making sure that you can get to the right people. So thank you both